Look, I get it. It's 2022 and you're frustrated. You're frustrated because your crypto portfolio isn't growing like you expect it to be. And you want to lash out. You want to blame others. You want to blame yourself. No matter what it is outside of your own actions, you can't seem to get it to go the way everyone else is talking about, bragging about, exclaiming to others. Well, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about 5 reasons why your portfolio is not growing the way you want it to and what you need to do to fix it. Okay? So let's start with the very first thing. You're just not patient enough. See, here's the thing about crypto. It's oftentimes a lot like stocks. There are 2 ways to build wealth. One of those ways is you can simply buy and sell and trade and play the market. And this is what everyone talks about online. This is where you see everyone bragging. I bought this one crypto that no one else heard of, and it blew up and went to the moon. Now, let me be honest with you. I've done that with some cryptos, and probably you have as well. But it doesn't happen all the time. In fact, it happens a lack of the majority of the time. It's rarer for that to happen for some random crypto you buy and within months it blows up. The truth is, it's much more about a patient strategy for the common person. You see, all this technical analysis that you see on YouTube and other places simply are not nearly as technical as you might think. We often use patterns, we use trends and things like this to describe the way we think things are going to go, but you'll always find someone with counter technical analysis to the very analysis you just watched. In other words, we're all just guessing here. YouTubers are notorious for this. There's a reason that they're sharing and trying to do all this. It's not to teach you how to get rich. It's to convince you to watch their channel so that they get views and thereby ad revenue to get things going. But the truth is, for most of us, if not all of us, the best investment strategy is simply to buy and hold and be patient. Now, there are things baked into that. Buying the correct projects, but being patient on them and let them have time to incubate, let them have time to grow. Because if there's one consistent thing that happens year on year on year is that the total market cap of crypto as a whole is continuing to grow. Because there's more innovation that comes in, there's more users that come in, there's more buyers, there's more investment firms, there's more capital being injected on and on and on and on. And so while some advertisements may say that fortune favors the bold, the truth is fortune favors the patient. Now, number 2, you just aren't consistent enough. I know this hurts to hear, but once again, we can take a typical investment strategy from stocks or other typical financial investments and adapt them into the crypto world. And it's simply this: you're just not consistent enough. What's your actual buying habits? If your buying habits are when you see everyone on Reddit shilling the next coin, and that's when you go in and you decide to ape into that just like they did, you're following the trends, you're following the herd. And oftentimes that herd will take you right off the cliff because buying the trends of what everyone else buys just means you're one of them. You're not doing anything more unique. One of the most powerful investment strategies that's out there is actually this: dollar cost averaging. Being consistent with your buys. Now, whether that's a weekly buy, a monthly buy, a bi-monthly buy, I really wouldn't do much more than monthly buys. This is the key to consistent success. You see, study after study after study in stocks and other areas show that dollar cost averaging is the way to go because it's consistency that's happening periodically at a very firm finite time through the growth of the market. So while you might buy high, and you might buy low, over time those average out to be consistent growth. And this is one of the big problems that I see young investors make. They hope that they can take all the funds that they have at the moment and just ape right into some crypto and it will do well. Compound that with the first mistake that we just mentioned of not being patient enough, and that is a disastrous look for your portfolio health. So be consistent. Find the projects you're going to invest in and be consistent across the board in your purchasing habits. In fact, I even like to say, once you've budgeted this in, typically you never want to go into debt for an investment. Now, there may be some asides to that I could share in other videos, but especially when it comes to buying crypto. So just buy consistently. Once you've budgeted that in, let your platform that you buy on, like Coinbase or other places like that, simply do those buys for you in the background, and you'll be much better off. In fact, you're better off just to forget that they happened. And then when you get those monthly emails or weekly emails or whatever your cadence is, you're like, oh yeah, it bought for me. That's great. Just like always, consistent buys. Now, why do I know that? I know that because I have been doing dollar cost averaging in crypto for a decade now. Hear me, a decade. So I know what I'm talking about. I'm not some brilliant person that's out there that's buying the crazy things that nobody knows about. In fact, I think if I had a YouTube channel that bragged on that, like all the rest of them, I might get a lot more views. But the truth is, what works for me and what works for you, and even what works for those people that brag about what they're actually doing when they're not doing those things, is really this: dollar cost averaging, which is consistency for the win. Number 3, I really want to hit on something that gets close to me on this channel. And if you follow me, you know I talk about this quite a bit. It's simply this: you compare yourself to others way too much. And there's a huge baked-in problem to comparison. When's the last time you actually asked someone who you're comparing to show you their portfolio? See, people ask me this all the time. They're like, hey, Wes, how much crypto do you actually have? A lot of my friends will say that. And I'm like, hey, do I ever ask you how much money is in your bank account? And they're like, oh, okay, I get your point, right? And there's truth to this, is that I don't want people to make comparisons to me or to others, because comparisons are almost always unhealthy. Sure, I know large organizations, I used to work in banking, do comparisons all the time. We call these peer analysis and peer metrics. But the truth is, in investment, especially on the retail side, we are so susceptible to comparison that it really leads us astray. In other words, what I mean by this: look at this scrolling of all these YouTube videos, of all these people saying that this is going to make you rich, that's going to make you rich, this is the project you need to invest in, this is how I tripled, quadrupled, 100x'd, 1000x'd my portfolio. I mean, come on, it doesn't work that way, and they'll never prove it. They're not going to show you their portfolio. They're not going to show you those investments. They're not going to show you what's hidden behind everything. And even if they do show you those things, there's probably a whole bunch of manipulation happening behind the scenes. And so simply comparing yourself to others is a really bad experience, because it will always make you feel like you're so much further behind, when in reality, you're not comparing on actual raw data. You're just not. You're comparing off what they want you to see, their projections of who they are. This is why I don't do price speculation on this channel. This is why I don't typically show my portfolios. I don't do those kinds of things because across the board, comparisons are very unhealthy and put you in a negative state of mind that make you fear and make you feel like you're so much further behind, when in reality, you're probably not all that far behind. And if you're dollar cost averaging consistently and being patient, remember number 1 and number 2, alongside number 3 of not judging by comparison, you'll be so much further ahead. Number 4, you're simply not enough of a data nerd. Take it from a data nerd who knows what they're talking about. I spend a significant amount of time before I make an investment in a project diving into it, trying to understand the mechanics of it, who the founders are, what project it's based on, what ecosystem it lives in, how many other followers they have, are they funded, which doesn't always matter, what kind of market cap they are, where I think their growth is, and outside factors that may all add in to its success. You see, if you're just simply making your decisions based on metrics on what Reddit, YouTube, TikTok, any of these other social platforms tell you that everyone else is buying, you're making mistakes. It's good to know where the herd is going, like I said before, not a bad idea. What's negative is when you're making those decisions because it's all subjective. What are your objective metrics? Let me just ask you that right now. Pause the video and think about this. When you vet a crypto, do you actually have objective metrics that you apply to every single project? Ouch. Probably put a knife right in your heart, didn't I? Because you're like, yeah, guilty. I really don't do that at all. And that's a huge sign of lack of success and lack of maturity in your investing strategy. What are those mechanisms? What kind of data science do you place into your evaluation criteria to make sure that you're going after good projects? There's a lot to be said around all of that, but simply adding data into your decision makings is a positive and powerful way to go. Now, I know just earlier I hated on technical analysis. You don't have to be a TA expert. There are very few, if any, good, true, real TA experts in crypto, at least that are consistent across the board. I think what we need to do instead is less TA and more just knowing our projects, knowing who they are, knowing where they come from, knowing where they're going, and really keeping our ear to the ground to surrounding information outside of it. That is a huge problem that people just aren't nerds enough when it comes to their investing strategy. Talk to anybody that plays the market in stocks and ask them a lot of data about why they've chosen the stocks they've chosen. Those that are highly successful, again, don't just go off comparison, number 3 that I told you, but actually understand where their portfolios are. You'll learn from them that they really do understand the market quite well, and they understand the projects, or really should say the companies that they're investing in. And we can learn a lot from that. Is number 4, is be more of a data nerd. And lastly, if you've gotten this far, it tells me that you're pretty diligent, that you're really working through those things, that maybe 1 or 2 of those that I mentioned, you're like, yep, I'm going to get better at those. But if you've made it this far, you're probably pretty consistent. You haven't turned the video off because you didn't write me off as somebody that made you mad and offended you because you're not following these things. You actually care. And because of that care, because of that diligence, you're one of those that your portfolio is probably going to continue to grow. So let me give you the 5th one that I think helps. And this helps especially when you have 1 through 4 nailed down. And it's simply this: your investment metrics are off base. Take a look at this right here from CoinMarketCap. There are many places you can use to make this work, but notice here how they have filters that we have set up. So I've brought this up and I'm looking and I'm filtering at market cap range. Now I've talked about this before in other videos, but notice this: they have a 10 billion market cap, a 1 to 10 billion, a 100 million to 1 billion, and then they have smaller market caps at 10 to 100, 1 to 10, and less than 1. Now, I'm not necessarily going to tell you which of these that you need to choose from, but I will say this: as you slide into larger market caps, know that you're sliding into more consistent, stable crypto projects, things like Bitcoin, things like Ethereum, and many of the other top 20, top 25 projects that are out there. Now, this is not to say that a top 25 project might completely and colossally fail. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is across the board, your gains over time on these larger projects are not going to be as significant as the smaller market caps, but that's not a bad thing, because what you trade off in the lack of like impressive 1000x gains on these larger market caps, you gain by consistency and stability of growth. And this is why I think most people would say that really are understanding what they're doing, make your investment strategies based upon a larger percentage being into the more consistent growth categories. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't get into these smaller market caps, but understand as you step downward into smaller market cap, especially under 100 million, know that these are extremely volatile, that many of them are scams. And some of them will see 0 to negative growth over the next year or the entirety of their project. So this is where being enough of a data nerd goes hand in hand. You can make a smaller investment, like 1% or less of your entire portfolio, in a high risk, low market cap category, and understand that one of the first rules of crypto, which is this: never invest more than you're willing to lose, can really add into this. Let's say you put $100 into a project that you really like. You've been studying it, you think it's really interesting, and it's going somewhere very fun. But let's say it's a $50 million market cap crypto it's brand new and just came out. Keep in mind, you're probably gambling, right? That's the truth of it. But it's less gambling when you've done your data science behind it. Now, what happens in a situation like that? Well, if you're patient, going back to the very first thing we talked about, and you simply wait that project out and you wait through its highs, you wait through its lows, you may see significant gain in growth over the next 2 to 4 years of that project. But is that what you really want to stake your farm on? You want to be the next guy that's on the news for dumping in a whole mortgage on this tiny, small market cap crypto that completely failed? And now you've lost your home and you've lost your girlfriend and you've lost your dog and everything else that's happened? Of course not. Is that worth it to be the next Lambo, moon rocket guy that's out there? Probably not, in my estimation. And so I'm not your financial advisor. I'm not giving you financial advice. You need to go consult other qualified, trained professionals on this, but I'm simply saying this: the way that I do these things, I love the stable, large market cap cryptos. I'm not afraid of the smaller ones, but I certainly don't have equal investment percentages into each of those categories. I like to make sure that my consistent large cap cryptos are where the majority of my funds are going. I understand that I'm offsetting that because its growth is not going to be as wild. But when I find small market cap cryptos under 1 billion, under 100 million that I really like, I put less into those because of a greater chance of failing. But that smaller investment can often mean more than some of the large investments over the long term. But I'm hedging myself against failure. because I'm being careful in the portfolio sizes, in my metrics, to guard myself, prepare myself, and give myself capacity to grow. But I'm also not the next guy that's on the news where everyone's making fun of me because I put a home mortgage onto the next crypto that I thought was going to be awesome, only to be a rug pull and fell apart. So there you have it. Those are the 5 things that I would tell you of why your portfolio is not growing the way you think it should be in 2022 and beyond. And these are the things you should think about fixing. I hope this was helpful. Take a look at these other videos that I have here all around investing and make your own wise decisions. While you're here, hit like, hit subscribe. It goes a long way for the channel. Thank you so much.